Hey there, Postal here. So, we're in a Tier 9 battle. We are in my favorite plane in the game, and we've got a B-29C on our team, so this game will probably be over pretty soon. So let's go ahead and see what we can do here. Let's go push right to the airbase here. So what is the F6U besides my favorite plane in the game? It is just a burner at Tier 9. What's really funny is I cannot tell you the last time I had a Tier 9 battle. That's not funny. Very often you get stuck into Tier 10 battles when you are in a Tier 9 plane. And so, by golly, you want your Tier 9 plane to be flipping good, don't ya? Well, this is a pretty good plane, I'd say. At the very least, it's enjoyable for me. What do I like about it? Well, for one, the speed. You'll notice just on the stat page when you go to load in that the speed is pretty darn high for a fighter. In fact, it is, I've got mine on pace to be as fast as the majority of the heavy fighters that are at this tier. And if I really wanted to, I could probably chase down that J8M, but I don't want to. I'm actually going to try to be a little cheeky here. Get rid of that guy, so that way I'm keeping the enemy planes still alive, so I can hopefully try to get them as a defense kill. And we'll see how this goes. J8M. We all know how fast the J8M is, and yet he's not really pulling away, is he? That's because this plane doesn't let a whole hell of a lot of planes pull away, especially with the setup that I've got on it. And keep in mind, this setup isn't even as fast as you could get this plane to go. But to get it to the max speed, I feel like you would sacrifice too much maneuverability. And you just want a little bit of turning, just to turn with those targets that are, you know, turning. I don't know what just happened there. Some skippity skip. What you'll notice, though, is besides this plane being stupid fast, it also has some pretty darn good cannons, right? These are 4 20mm cannons. These are the 20mm cannons that the Americans probably should have had a little bit earlier. If they had, you know, done their due diligence on making 20mm cannons instead of screwing up the copies that they got from the British. What am I doing here? I don't really care about that. Oh, there's an F2G, though. F2G used to be the plane that would get you to this plane. That is no longer the case. But what this plane has retained from those good old days is the boost. If you'll look here, I've got 13 seconds for the boost, and that's after some significant impacts to the duration of my boost. I think you get 16 seconds to start off with. I have this set up. Well, we'll see back in the hangar how I've got this set up. Hello. Let's go ahead and put our pneumatic control assist on just so we can outturn this 228. Don't need to give him any opportunity to get his 30mm cannons on target. But he's dead now. That's about the only time I use my pneumatic control assist is to avoid those kind of shots. Get behind a heavy fighter quicker. You never really use it in this plane in a dogfight scenario, because that would just be suicidal. This plane is not built to dogfight anybody. Alright, let's catch up to the... Well, it's going to dogfight heavy fighters, and that's about it. This is really quite good at taking down the heavy fighters because they can't get away. A heavy fighter's, you know, trump card is got the speed to get away. Not versus an F6U. Go, got ourselves a bomber gone. Looks like we're about to get air supremacy, which was kind of expected, having a B-29C on our team and me as the top tier plane. But again, you got to take advantage of those situations. It's not that we've just been sitting back doing nothing either. We have been definitely getting some decent kills here, making our presence known, taking out the planes that we can take out. And that's that game, huh? So we've got a BVP 213 here, but we're actually going to go for... never mind. We're going to go for the BVP because he's going in a direction that we can actually be impactful for. Remember, a Batwing is basically a light fighter, and so you've got to make sure that you're being tactical when you're doing your attacks versus light fighters. You're basically attacking them as if you were a heavy fighter. You're going to do some booming and some zooming. There we go. Got a bomber up top. Let's actually get this Tempest. Game's over though anyway, so never mind. Made that game look easy, but to be honest, I'm going to make almost every game that I play in the F6U look easy. We're going to take a look at the end game plates for this in a second, but let's get into another battle first. Alright, this is more like a tier 10 battle. I honestly, the last battle at a tier 9 plane, tier 9 battle, I couldn't believe it. So on our team we have an EF-131, so again we're living the bomber life vicariously through our teammates here. On the enemy team though, we've got a specialized IL-40P and a specialized P-228. And Ender Ohio is a pretty darn good pilot if I remember correctly. So let's go ahead and let's get this garrison while we can get this garrison. Not that they really need our help with it, considering, like I said, I'm pretty sure you heard, there's an EF-131 and I'm sure it'll do its thing. Our job is really going to be to try to, counter the 228. Which should be a good thing, considering this plane is really built to be an anti-heavy fighter. The issue that we might have is simply, thank you for dying, is simply going to be that, that plane has the ability to, if he's built it, could really tear me up in 2 seconds. Like, no joke, 2 seconds, right? And so I really do need to just pay attention to his whereabouts. If I'm paying attention to his whereabouts, and there's his whereabouts. If I'm paying attention to his whereabouts, I should be okay. As long as I don't screw anything up. I've been known to screw stuff up, though, from time to time. So again, we are just trying to get these ridiculously awesome cannons on target. Very similar to the, there we go, very similar to the 1092's cannons. I think on paper the 1092's cannons are just a little bit better. I'd have to go and compare, which we'll do in just a second. Alright, so we've defended this sector pretty well. Unfortunately, we needed to get that sector right. So where is this heavy fighter? There is owned heavy fighter, so let's go take him out first. Oh, he saw us. How convenient. He thinks he can escape me. He cannot. He put out the fire, but that won't help him at all. So we'll leave the mining facility to our mining facility capping friend. And what's the point of having an EF-131 on our team? I've just, given him that sector basically by killing the only thing that even would have a chance of killing him. So let's not, there's no point in us being there, I guess is my point. Perfect. Let's go be ourselves, right? So again, we need to pay attention to the map. That frickin' 228 is not gonna just like let us keep, being us. Oh, shoot. And, oh no, this is actually going to be pretty close to our death if it's not our death. Simply because I certainly can't outmaneuver him. I don't know if I've got the air... Oh, and the heavy fighters inbound as well. So I'm definitely dead. Tried though. At that point, just getting picked apart by 2 different planes, and I was all out of my boost. You really want to hang on to your boost whenever you get a chance in this particular plane. Unfortunately, I died in the sector, which really sucks. But what we can do is we'll hop back out. We'll go ahead and get ourselves a garrison, and we'll move along. These two guys are not going to make it an easy game for us. Clearly. So let's get loaded back in here as quickly as possible. Hopefully we'll get that garrison soon. Let's go ahead and get this garrison now. Those heavy ground air defense aircraft are going to be behind me. Just a second. Why are my cannons not hitting? Okay. I hate when that kind of stuff happens. It's almost like the hit register is not working properly. Not going to keep turning with that guy. It's not going to make any sense. I can turn with this guy because I can actually turn with a heavy fighter a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and do that. Perfect. We've got the Spitfire behind us. Not a lot I can do about that. Even my pneumatic control assist won't really help me in this situation.
The enemy is trying to capture the plant. Don't let them do it.
I just need to get somebody else to get that guy, I guess. Kind of annoyed with my cannons right now. They don't normally do this kind of shenaniganery. Thank you. I'm going to push over to the mining facility, see if I can't defend it a little bit. First we need to get rid of this Jawa. There's a hunter down here as well. Okay. I actually will do pneumatic control assist here just to make sure that I can outturn this dude. Thought I had to come down to take care of the hunter, but since I'm down here, I'll try to take care of this guy. I need to watch out for my rear gunner. The bombers aren't on any kind of super low health, so I'm not going to just dive up there or zoom up there. There we go. Pushing to defend, pushing to defend. Here comes Ender. Unfortunately, I'm all out of my pneumatic control assist, as well as my boost. Got my boost back, though. And again, I have the speed to stick with this guy. You just might not know that. My mouse is off my frickin' mouse pad. I'm pushing it so frickin' hard. That's what she said. Got him. Whew. Man, I need to breathe. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Let's get this TU-12 just because we're up here. Man, this game's pushing. No! No, we just lost. We were just about to capture this. Or get the boost from it. Anyway. We're barely on top here. I need to pay attention to the map. That 228 is not gonna leave me alone. I know it. Somebody else got the kill, but oh well. His IL-40P is just on such a huge friggin' thing of hit points. It's gonna be really annoying. My engine's knocked out. Let's see if I can get some airspeed. I'll try to just do a hit and run. I think he's probably focused on the F-84 more than me. Boost on past him. See if we can't get this BVP. We probably need to save our boost for the 228. Keep on pushing here. Got a hunter inbound. Keep our speed going. I need to get off the frickin' boost though. Go. Will we capture out in the 30 seconds that it will take? Jawa here. Yes, we will win. Holy freaking crap, that was tough.
Job today. We'll be waiting for you back home.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wow. The enemy team was like right on par with our team, weren't they? We were just doing everything that we could do together. Man, Ender, Ohio is such a good pilot. Tallgrass is doing really well there too. Man. Breathe. Let's head back. So here's a look at our first battle that we had. This was the one with the B-29C, who was just capturing everything under the sun. And I'm actually impressed with this particular battle because we were able to do what we did, even though we had, again, a B-29C capturing every sector. That bomber joked around that all your bases are belong to us, and then he said JK, and I said no, you're not, because you're a B-29C. Now, if I was on the enemy team, it'd be a different story. I feel very comfortable in the F6U being able to take on bombers, even specialized human bombers. That being said, I wouldn't be able to just do what I did versus the JU-288 and the RB-17, just get behind it and killing it. Obviously, you'd have to have some sort of strategy when going against a specialized super bomber like that. So, what made this particular game so impressive isn't the numbers, isn't the amount of kills I got, which was 18, or the air damage I did, or the personal points I did. It was the fact that we were able to do that so quickly, considering we had a bomber on our team that was clearly going to just keep capturing sectors. A lesser plane might have only gotten 10 kills in this battle because the game went by so quickly. But the F6U can just be where you want it to be and can impose its will in the right situations more often than not, honestly, where a lot of other planes might not be able to do that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the second battle now. All right, so another 18 kill game there. Completely different battle though, right? I was under the impression on the first game we were going to win that no matter what. I feel there's so much control with this plane that in a tier 9 battle, unless there's an enemy fighter that's specialized, that's going out of his way to kill me all the time, I feel like I'm going to be put in a pretty good spot. So the second battle, really having to go out of our way to make sure that we are protecting what we've got or mitigating their attacks, right? So the F6U is not really the best air defense aircraft. It's not going to be something that can pivot and turn and defend sectors that are already owned. It's really quite good at helping capture sectors, and as you saw, it's very, very good at taking down heavy fighters. I've mentioned this before, but this just kind of reinforces it. And we're going to look on the metrics of my build for this plane, and you're going to see why that 228 was basically in trouble as soon as he didn't kill me. He was dead. So yeah, a completely different battle. But you can see what the F6U can do, even in a tier 9, even in a tier 10 battle, excuse me. Now granted, there was no, and I'm gonna huge disclaimer, there was not a specialized fighter that was out there trying to kill me. And I will tell you what I would normally do when you run into, because you're going to run into specialized 1092s. Specialized FJ1 could conceivably be a pain. You're really just not going to run into those guys very often, though, because nobody really likes the FJ1. MiG-9 could be a pain in the butt, actually. And so, like, some of those planes you do need to be mindful of. I haven't ran into them. And to be honest, the planes, I haven't ran into them today. The previous games that I've flown where I did run into MiG-9s or 1092s, what it comes down to is paying attention. So we'll go over that in just a minute. Just want to take a look at this game. Ender deserves a huge GG. So does Tallgrass. Tallgrass is one of my people I've been chatting with, friggin' friend I've been chatting with forever and a day here. And then we need Senator to Senator. So, like, as good as I did there, we wouldn't have, if we didn't have Senator on the team, we would not have won that game. It's just the fact of the matter, really. You know, the IL-40P was capturing sectors. Ender had to have been doing, just knocking out and impacting the ability of the EF-131 there. So just really good teams in this particular situation. I'm glad that we were able to come out on top, of course. And that's just what the flexibility of this plane allows you to do. It's flexible in certain situations. It's very inflexible in normal fighter situations. So let's take a quick look and compare this plane to the other Tier 9 fighters, and then we'll see my particular setup on it. Alright, so we've basically filled up our screen with stats here, right? I'm not tossing spreadsheets at you or anything like that, but what I am showing you is what this plane does comparatively to other planes in its altitude bracket and in its speed bracket. So the most common comparison to this particular plane is the MEP 1092, this plane down here, right? You have 420mm cannons on this. You've got reasonably good speed, reasonable maneuverability, reasonable altitude performance. The thing that makes the 1092 so good is its awesome guns. I've built this up a little bit. Mine is specialized but not maximized like the F6U Pirate is. But your cumulative damage is 850 damage per second. And your optimum distance is 2,600 feet. Basic same stats for this plane. 850 damage per second. A little bit more than 2,600 feet. Again, I've got this maximized. The 1092 can easily get the cumulative damage on this probably up above 900, I would suspect. But the overall feel of the cannons is going to be very, very similar. And I thought to myself, well, if the cannons are feeling that similar to a plane that everybody likes specific because of the guns, why don't we take out the F6U and see what we can do with it? And I just fell in love with it really quickly. What separates the F6U from the 1092 is its absolute monster speed. Your airspeed starts off stronger than a 1092. Yeah, your maneuverability is worse and your altitude performance is worse, but the airspeed is a decent chunk more. And then when you lean all in on that airspeed, you can really get yourself set up to just be a completely dominant boom and zoom type plane. This particular fighter, again, I set up to take on heavy fighters. You can't really get away from me unless you're completely ready to try to get away from me when I'm in my F6U. A prime example of the second battle was that 228 just didn't get away from me either time that I got behind him. Either I had my boost going or I was already going so fast and was able to knock out his engine each time. And that's what this plane excels at. If you're trying to get yourself into a dogfight with a 1092 or an attacker or even a MiG-9, you're going to struggle in that regard. Speaking of the MiG-9, let's go ahead and compare these two really quick. So the MiG-9 is known as an altitude speed fighter, right? I do have my MiG-9 specialized. Again, not maximized specialized. I don't think, anyway. But it's similar metrics here, right? The airspeed is on par. The maneuverability is actually going to be better for the MiG-9, and the altitude performance is going to be a decent chunk better on the MiG-9. The difference is the cannons on the MiG-9. You have one 37mm cannon, which is very, very short range, and you have these two 23mm cannons, which has the same basic range as your four 20mm cannons on here. Your cumulative damage is less, but you do some chunk damage with the 37mm. You can see the effective firing range is basically 200 meters, 600 feet, shorter than the 23mm cannons. So although this plane can do some really good chunk damage, the differences in the range can certainly throw you off. You really have to be up close to have that 37mm cannon doing the great damage that you want it to be. And so that, that's comparing it to that. Well, let's compare it to, I mentioned the FJ1 previously. The FJ1 has good base speed, although, again, it's not going to be as good as the base speed of an F6U. The thing that an FJ1 can do, though, is go high and maneuver still really well. An FJ1 can be a pain in the butt if they're paying attention and they're trying to outmaneuver you, things of that nature. You don't really see a lot of FJ1s because it isn't the strongest plane when it's stock, or even when it's elite. It doesn't really get into its own until it's specialized. And by that time, most people have moved on to the F86, which is absolutely wonderful, Tier 10. fighter. All right, well, so I've also got things up here like the Attacker and like the TA-183. The Attacker I'm simply showing because it is it's a mid-altitude fighter. You're going to run into a decent amount of attackers because it is a really good plane. It's well balanced. You've got pretty darn good airspeed, and better maneuverability certainly than an F6U Pirate. It's a balanced machine. It's going to be faster than an FJ1, but less maneuverable than an FJ1. You do have 4 20mm cannons on here, but you'll notice they're significantly weaker than the 4 20mm cannons on the Pirate or the 1092. That's because they're slightly shorter range, but really the issue is the damage per second output on these is worse. Even if the damage per second on the Attacker was the same as the Pirate or the 1092, this would be a worse gun setup because you have 4 cannons on the wings rather than 4 cannons centrally located like you have here on the Pirate and on the 1092. And last thing that I want to compare it to is a very, very similar plane, and that's the TA-183. TA-183 is very unmaneuverable for this tier. Has pretty darn good airspeed, and unlike the Pirate, actually has reasonably good, if not significantly good, altitude performance for this tier. You also have 4 30mm cannons on here that do slightly more damage per second stock, but have a reasonably less optimal distance on it. So this is kind of like a flying shotgun is what this is. However, I play these two planes very similarly. I hunt heavy fighters in this plane. If you're trying to maneuver or dogfight in a TA-183, much like in an F6U, you're going to struggle and you're not going to enjoy your life. You might have just looked at all those metrics and said, well, okay, great. So the MiG-9 has this is basically the same airspeed, but better maneuverability and altitude performance. So, okay. Or you might look at it and say, okay, so you've got basically the same guns as a 1092. Technically slightly weaker, but it's splitting hairs. But you've got much better maneuverability and even better altitude performance on the 1092. Why, Postal, are you talking about the F6U? Why is this your favorite plane in the game when clearly on paper there's better planes out there for the role that you're even talking about doing? And I'll tell you why. I have no idea. I got this plane on a whim back in the day, like so many planes. I got it because it was on discount. At the time, this tech tree, the United States tech tree, when you're going down this line, you went from the F2G, and you could get the F94D and the F6U, and then both these two planes went to the F7U. I decided, because I wanted to eventually get the F6U, that I was going to research the F6U first, because I knew I wanted the F94D, because everybody wants the F94D, because it's awesome. So I researched the F6U, then went to go research the F94D. And in the meantime, and by the time I was going to get the F7U, the F6U got moved over. However, during that time frame, I figured I'd fly it a little bit. It was on discounts instead of 4 million credits, 4.2 million credits, whatever it is. It was like 3 million credits, something like that. So I bought it and figured, what the heck, I'll fly it. And I just fell in love with it so quickly. I think part of it is because it's unexpected. You don't see a lot of F6Us out there, and so not a lot of people know how to fly against it. But that being said, its play type is so different from the other planes. So we might compare it to a MiG. We might compare it to a 1092. But it doesn't fly like either of those. Yes, a MiG has that speed. Yes, it has incredible altitude performance for its tier. But you don't fly it like a F6U. A MiG, you'll do some chunk damage versus heavies. But you still get stuck in against fighters and multi-rolls quite a bit. You will take your 37mm cannon and you kind of do some hit and runs, a lot more than you do in the F6U. The difference between the MiG-9 and the F6U Pirate is the F6U Pirate's cannons can actually melt down targets and kill them easier than a MiG-9 can. MiG-9 is going to do critical damage, knock out engines, knock out wings and all that stuff, but the damage output itself isn't as high as the F6U. And so you're not necessarily going to get the kill Although you will be able to set your team up for the win, by doing critical damage to the enemy planes. You're not necessarily going to see the planes completely just melt away like they do with the F6U. All right, cool. So that's fine. So your F6U cannons are helping you melt down planes. So why aren't you in the 1092 instead? Same cannons, if not slightly better, on a slightly slower but better maneuverable and better altitude performing plane. Why aren't you taking out the 1092? Well, honestly, my first reason for not taking out the 1092 is because everybody else is playing it. I know the 1092 is a great plane. It just is. The 1101 is a great plane. I don't fly them all that often because I see everybody else out there flying them. Not as much recently. Now that the bombers are kind of meta still. That makes the anti-bombers, that means they're heavy fighters. Rather than the 1092 and 1101, which used to be the meta back before the bombers really became into their own. Because the 1092 and the 1101 could take on the heavy fighters and could take on the fighters. They could take on everything, right? Now they're not nearly as good at taking out bombers as heavy fighters. So you tend to see people in their XF90s again, which has been a little while since you've seen people in those. But XF90s, HG3s, and to a lesser extent, Javelins. Well, I like to take out those heavy fighters. So the second battle is a prime example. We were able to win because I was able to kind of mitigate the heavy fighter, stop him from taking out the EF-131 a little bit, and help our team get that win. So again, part of it is I don't fly the 1092 as much because everybody flies the 1092, and I like to be a little bit counterculture in that regard. But by doing that, I found this niche that the F6U has, and that's just pure, unadulterated speed. One thing that's not really referenced here in the airspeed number, yeah, the MiG-9 has the same airspeed number, and I'm sure I could get the TA-183, or I'm pretty sure I could get the TA-183 up to the same airspeed number. But the boost availability that you have with the F6U cannot be understated. Again, you start off with 16 seconds. Mine's down to 13 seconds for this because my boost acceleration is just so incredible. 16 seconds of boost in a fighter, that's pretty significant. And so I've leaned all in on that. And I just have so much fun zipping around the battlefield and being basically, in my mind, I'm a maneuverable heavy fighter. And that's how I play this plane. So let's take a quick look at a breakdown of how I have my plane set up. And then I'm also going to look at some alternatives for some of you just that might want to see, well, just how crazy can we get this plane? So first things first, let's look at the guns, the engine, and the airframe. You know, this is specialized, obviously. You've got your 420 millimeter cannons. Their rate of fire is 600 rounds a minute. So that's basically, 10 rounds per second. And you're pumping those out really, really quickly. Just doing a lot of damage. And I love the sound it makes. I just love so much about this plane. It's absolutely just awesome. You can see how so I was using the F6U to grind to the F7U. I had my F94D, not gaining any aircraft experience. I was using all that aircraft experience to go to the pilot for the F94D. And I was using the F6U to grind to the F7U. And then they changed it, moved the F7U, or moved the F6U over to, being after the P51H now. So all this free XP had nowhere to go because I already had the F2H as well. So, so yeah, that's why my Pirate has so many freaking aircraft experience on it. It's not because my crew is not being accelerated. It is being accelerated. But that's why I've got almost 200,000 freaking aircraft experience on this plane. So let's take a look at how I've serviced this plane, and we're going to look at some different setups that you can do with this plane if you decide to want to join me in hanging out with the Pirate. I mentioned earlier I did not go all in on speed. Now, do keep in mind, all this is ultimate equipment. I don't have a lot of planes that have ultimate equipment on it. And I think I've only got 3 planes where the ultimate equipment is fully maximized. But I've done that with this plane. I mean, not fully maximized. It's at 474 for some of these. But as close as I can get, right? Or as close as I want to spend my money to get. I'm going to show you this setup, and then we'll show you a couple different nuances to that setup. So the two things that are not going to be changing are the gyroscopic sight and the gas-operated action. Gas-operated action is going to increase the rate of fire. It negatively impacts the accuracy of your forward-firing armament, but you'll see here in a minute how we counter that. I've also been able to increase the chance of causing fire by 15% and increase the rate of fire by even more. I think if I was actually trying to reassemble this, I would probably want to increase the critical damage. You can increase the cooldown rate, I'm okay with the cooldown rate as it is. So never mind. That's probably why I left it on the increased chance of causing fire. The fire damage should not be scoffed at. Causing a fire on an enemy plane is going to do some damage. If they don't have a fire extinguisher, it's going to do hundreds of damages. If they do have a fire extinguisher, well, guess what? You got the chance to set them on fire again, and then they really are going to burn out. Fires are a big deal. It's the reason why planes like P-51s can do so well if you maximize their fire damage output. 50 caliber machine guns certainly can do that really well. These cannons do that well also. The other item that you're not going to change, in my opinion, is the gyroscopic sight. Part of that is to cancel some of the, or all of the, accuracy issues with the gas-operated action. And then part of it is also going to be some of the bonuses that you get. So you'll notice you've got 21% accuracy to your forward-firing armament. That's more than going to cancel out the gas-operated action impact. On top of that, the bonuses for this particular one are going to give a 15% increase to the critical damage and another 5% accuracy when firing at moving targets, basically meaning your auto-aim percentage is going to increase by that 5%. The only thing I would maybe possibly change, so I've tried the G suit on this plane. It just doesn't do enough impact for me to care. Your maneuverability is not very good. Yeah, you're going very fast, where the G suit would be impactful, but you're not. If you're trying to turn in this plane, then you're not playing it right. If you're trying to dogfight, then you're not playing it right. So that would mean the only thing that might be viable, and I haven't tried it out, would be the navigational radio equipment. That's going to increase your ability to see enemy planes, and it's going to decrease their ability to see you. That could be very impactful in a plane like this. It's so quick anyway. If you can be like on top of them before they realize that you're even there, yeah. So that might be viable. Most people don't really like the radio equipment on any plane. And not being able to see its impact, not being able to see, have rings around your planes like they do in World of Tanks, World of Warships, to be able to see your physical ability to be seen kind of situation. It means that most people aren't even going to really understand this equipment's impact. Hell, I barely understand it. I know it works because I use it on my FJ1 and it works to great effect, but that's because the FJ1 isn't very good, at least not specialized how I've got mine. I don't have mine specialized, so I really try to just be avoided being seen so I can be effective in that plane. I still do really well with the setup that I've got on this plane. So the plane's so fast that it's typically hard for them to see anyway. So that's why I've leaned all in on my gyroscopic sight. And that's that. All right, so as far as the equipment on the aircraft and the engine are concerned, so this is where you've got some flexibility. I've gone ahead and put the high-speed gas turbine and the uprated engine on here. That's why you see that both my acceleration without boost and my acceleration with boost have been increased by 22%. My engine cooldown rate is at plus 20%. My cruise speed is plus 12.5%. My maximum speed with the boost activated is plus 8%. Yes, my boost availability is down by 15%. But to me, that's fine. That's worth it because when I do increase my boost, I'm going so quickly. I'm going from 0 to 100 so quickly. You saw it against that 228, but I do the same thing versus HG2s and HG3s. Javelins can't get away from me typically if I'm getting the jump on them. XF90s and to a lesser extent HG3s can be a little bit can get away from me more often than not. Reason for XF90s, I think, is because they typically don't turn anyway. Whereas planes like HG3s and Javelins, 228s, HG2s, those type of planes typically maneuver from time to time, whereas an XF90 just kind of goes straight all the time. And so if a Phantom, obviously it's going to be much harder to stick with them, or certainly harder to catch up to them. So XF90s can be a little bit difficult to deal with as far as holding on to your speed advantage, but not all the time by any means. So I've gone all in on my speed with the engine equipment. The airframe here has the ability to have a speed equipment. I've used lightweight wing frame, and the reason is because there are times where I need a little bit of maneuverability, specifically when I'm having to deal with multi-role fighters. If I want to try to get my guns on target quicker versus a heavy fighter, things of that nature. This is the setup that's worked best for me. However, if I really wanted to maximize the airspeed, you could put polished skin on here. And so you're going to see, right now my cruise speed's 385 and my boost speed's 642. If I put polished skin on here, and I do have an ultimate polished skin on here, this would increase my cruise speed above 25% boost. You can see I'd have an additional 54 miles an hour. That's pretty significant, right? My boost speed wouldn't be impacted by it, of course. My maximum dive speed wouldn't be impacted by it, of course. But having my cruise speed just be 50 miles an hour faster is pretty significant. Problem with that is it's going to take almost a second. It's going to add a second to my turn time. It's going to negatively impact my roll rate. I really didn't want to do that. Again, there's just certain situations. For the most part, I'm not turning. Not very often. But there are situations where I do want to turn and stick with an F84 or an F94 or get my guns on target on a Jawa quicker rather than not. You could go with polished skin here and possibly take off the uprated engine and put something like a lightweight power unit on here. I think I've got an ultimate lightweight power unit. I do. So you could go in this direction. If I swapped these two equipment items, made my airframe the speed equipment and made one of my engine items the maneuverability equipment, my airspeed would be slightly higher. My boost speed would be slightly lower. My cruise speed would be slightly higher, reasonably higher. But again, my maneuverability would be negatively impacted. Half a second, to me, that's not worth it. To you, it might be worth it, though. So I wanted to show the differences, different kinds of setups that you could have. I mean, conceivably, we could change this even to the uprated engine. Maybe not necessarily positively impact the boost, but could conceivably positively impact your overall cruise speed. So you can see my boost speed's knocked down. My overall cruise speed's higher, though. So my base speed's going to be higher, but my top speed's going to be lower. My boost duration goes up by 3 seconds. So, I mean, I've got that positive impact. But again, my maneuverability's knocked off by half a second. But this might be better for your playstyle. So keep that in mind. The setup I've got is not end-all, be-all. Although I would not recommend this build. And that's a maneuverability build. Having the maneuverability build on this plane gets you down to 11.5 seconds. Whoopity freaking do. Like, if you want a maneuverability build plane, don't forget the F6U. Hell, take a 1092 and make it a maneuverability build. You've got flexibility with that. Get an attacker. Attacker with a maneuverability build is a very good plane. Or, what you could do, go get a maneuverability plane like a Yak 19 or a Key 162. Those are built already out of the box. LA 160. With maneuverability in mind, don't build your F6U for maneuverability. It doesn't like it. Here's the setup I've got. It's a setup I do very, very well in, to the point that it was actually difficult to make this video. And I'll get into that in just one quick second. This is really long, and I just wanted to give as much detail on this plane as possible. Give my opinion and also some alternative opinions as well. As far as the consumables are concerned, I've got first aid dressing on here. I don't get set on fire very often at all, and it's just important to get your pilot back into the battle so you can get your accuracy back as quickly as possible. So putting a fire extinguisher on here just doesn't make sense to me. I do have pneumatic control assist on here. There's two reasons. first of all, so something that somebody might put on here is going to be emergency control system. And the reason I don't necessarily recommend that is because you're not going to be turning a lot anyway. Let's say you're flying along, you get your tail or your wing knocked out. Guess what? Hit your boost and get the hell out of Dodge. You're not going to be trying to turn or out-turn whatever's coming at you anyway. And even if you were, let's say it was a P228, you're going to be able to out-turn them with your wing or tail knocked out typically anyway. But even if you can't, let's say it's a 228 and it's or an HG3 and it's knocked out your wing and tail and your maneuverability is just a little bit terrible and you can't outmaneuver it. Well, hit pneumatic control assist and it'll allow you to out-turn for that 10 seconds and you'll be fine. The other thing I like to have pneumatic control assist for is if I do need to get my guns on target a little quicker versus something like an F84 or a BVP 212, you can do that with pneumatic control assist in the right circumstances. Again, you're not using this for a dogfight situation. You're using it to get your guns on target quicker or to outmaneuver a heavy fighter that got the jump on you. Hopefully they don't get the jump on you very often. As far as consumables are concerned, here there is some flexibility. Engine cooling is going to be the thing that I recommend no matter what your build is. You want that extra 10 seconds worth of boost. You want to lean in to your overall boost ability, and the engine cooling is going to do that for you. I have improved mixture control on here. However, there is an argument for manual engine restart. If you get your engine knocked out in this plane, you're dead. You just are. You're not going to outmaneuver anything, no matter if you've got a maneuverability build or not. You're going to not outmaneuver anything. And then you're just a sitting duck. You're not going to outspeed anything either. The only thing that could save you is if you got a flight member or just a friendly bot that happens to save your bacon. Otherwise, you're dead. So putting an engine restart on here is certainly a very viable option. I've gone all in with the improved mixture control, however, just because I've maximized my plane to the point where I don't get myself in trouble very often. And so just having even more speed is a good thing for my playstyle. Again, results may vary, so engine restart is perfectly viable. I've got the universal ammo on here. It's 10,000 credits. It's worth it again, in my opinion. I kind of wish they showed the percentage impact to this particular ammunition, but c'est la vie. This is my setup for my F6U Pirate. As far as my pilot is concerned, my F6U Pirate. As far as my pilot is concerned, I've gone ahead and maximized the accuracy of the pilot. Marksman 2 for this plane I think is very important. Again, the guns are what's going to save you. The speed gets you into trouble or gets you out of trouble, but the guns are what's going to save you. And so having them actually hit the target and melt down your targets very quickly, I think is very, very important. Again, this is what separates this plane from the MiG-9, is just the plane's ability to actually kill what's in front of it rather than just do some chunk damage or some critical damage. Now that I've got Marksman 2, the next, basically your 7th point on this pilot would either be Engine Guru 1 if your plane's not specialized. If the plane's specialized, you're actually going to want to use Aerodynamics Expert. And the reason being is because Aerodynamics Expert increases the effect of your equipment when the equipment is used for maneuverability or speed. Since all my equipment on my engine and airframe are used for speed, that's a 40% buff to my lightweight wing frame and engine, my engine equipment. So having a positive impact to those 3 equipment items is the right way to go if the plane's specialized. So Aerodynamics Expert. If your plane's not specialized, then you're only going to have 2 of these slots used. And so Aerodynamics Expert isn't going to be the way to go. My recommendation is going to be Engine Guru 1 in that situation. And then once you've specialized it and you get up to your 9th pilot point, then go back and get Aerodynamics Expert. Now I'm working on Engine Guru 2. That's going to be the next 3 points. So once I finally get 12 points on this pilot, which would be my highest point pilot, so obviously it's going to take a while, I'm going to get Engine Guru 2. Aerobatics Expert is just not worth it. Again, the maneuverability is not this particular plane's forte. Battle tested as one of my last 3 points. Battle tested could be a viable option. I think I'm probably going to go with Cruise Flight as my 15th point on this pilot. That increases the view range plus the engine thrust and top speed by 3% when you're not in, when you haven't received any damage for 20 seconds. And so what that means is when you're going from sector to sector, basically, you're going to be able to see farther and get there quicker. So if you need to get to another sector to defend it or get to another sector to attack it, you're going to be better prepared if you've got cruise flight. It's not the end-all, be-all. Again, this is going to be the last 2 points that I use on this pilot, or 2 of the last 3 points on this pilot. And eventually we'll get it, maybe 1 year. We'll see. So this is my favorite plane in the game. If I'm having a bad day, I hop in this plane. If it's a tier 10 battle, I don't care. I still am going to enjoy myself. I'm still going to kick butt. Have a positive impact on the battle. Part of it, I think, is just because it's kind of anti-meta right now. It's good against heavy fighters and it's good against bombers. It's good against ground attackers. It's only thing that it's not good against is very maneuverable planes. And even then, if you're playing this plane, the F6U, like a heavy fighter, you're going to have success versus those planes as well. So I just like that the F6U has the ability to kind of do a little bit of everything, as long as you're paying attention to the map and you're paying attention to the enemies that you know can be a negative impact on you. So again, I apologize. I know this was a little bit longer, probably very much longer video than my normal videos, but I really wanted to go into full detail on the F6U, how awesome this plane can be, and why I think it deserves a little bit more love in the game. I'd love to go out there and see a whole bunch of little pirates flying around, completely wrecking games, but we'll see. So how do you feel about this plane? Is the F6U a plane that you enjoy flying? Is it a plane that you haven't even tried to go down yet? Is it a plane that you absolutely hate after you got it? And do you hate it because of the way it looks? I actually love the way this thing looks. I haven't even talked about that. Shame on me. The look of this plane is probably one of the things that first drew me to it, because it's just like, come on, what's going on here? What are we doing? I love this plane. I would love to hear your comments down below. Feel free to hop in my Discord. We can talk about it a little bit more there too as well. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a great day. Bye.